Characters. Who are they? What are they? Who will they become? So much goes into the creation of a character. Their backstory, culture, origins, abilities, personality, description, and so much more. As a reader, we only get a glimpse of what truly goes into the development of each character. So sit back and relax as we explore characters in depth on this week's episode of Character Driven with Madilynndale. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Character Driven. I've got a fantastic author with me today, and I've read several of his books, so I actually get to really pick his brain on this character. This is one of my favorite characters that he's written. So
Nice.
I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about the book we're going to be talking about.
Hello, my name is JT Moriarty, and I've written it's science fiction about robots in the future, but it's very much about human nature, and the mystery is what are these robots doing, how things happened, you know, and each book focuses on a different robot. The first one, we don't even know the robot's name; it just wakes up one day and starts writing a diary of its events. But the second one of the robots has read the first robot's diary and must defend herself. She's like, no, that's not true. I look like a devil. I look like a psycho. I'm not that bad. I need to defend myself. And her name is Wix. And you'll be pleased to meet her, I think.
I have to agree. She's a fun character. So go ahead and tell our viewers where you got the idea for Wix.
It was writing the first diary. So the first diary was very much a collection of short ideas and just supposed to be a short, fun, one-off story. And at the moment, I think I've got 7 ideas for this one-off story. Yeah, don't hold me to that. But towards the end, it gets the idea it should change up things that will help it in its mission. And it meets this other robot who's red and angry and sassy and very forthright compared to our robot who's, blue and black and quite plain, and tries to emulate her. So she's presented as much a devil. Like they'll go to the cinemas and halfway through it, she downloads the movie beforehand, watches it, and then shouts out the answer. And everybody screams and yells, and then she stands up and points at the person next to her and goes, you said that, and just causing a mock terror, all that sort of stuff. She was always intended to be a very funny character, and then when I read back over the book, I realized she's in about only 2 or 3 chapters and just does bad things. I'm like, oh, she should probably get defended because she was just going through a bad patch when our first robot meets her. So the second book is her defense of that, and you find so much. It's like a can of worms.
That's true. I have to agree because book 2 really focuses on her, and there's like a whole nother side to her. I really like because I felt like you brought out her caring side in the second book when we are
Yes.
really in her head, and it was really cool to see like both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and I like redemption arcs sort of as a story, and she's not trying to say I'm not bad, this is what I'm like, but rather just here's both sides of it. Because the first robot is very stunted, very very robotic, and just writes information as it is. And she's like, no, here's the context, here's what happened, here's just everything.
Mm-hmm.
She was
Very.
great fun to write. Also, seeing the first one was so stunted, and she was so open and honest and forthwith. It was much more fun to write her because I got to show so much more of the world.
That's true. And go ahead and tell our viewers about her name, what it actually stands for, and the history behind that, because there's more backstory there.
To pronounce the name is just Wix. Our first robot doesn't have a name, doesn't care about names, doesn't need a name, but it's written W-IX, so Wix or Wix. As they go through models, they find out that the W is for woman because this robot's modeled in the female fashion as opposed to the male fashion or just nothing androgynous. And then IX might be the 9th version of this robot, but we're not positive. So she just took the letters and pronounced them, and Wix sounded like a hot, angry sort of name. It fits her. It's kind of like, Winks as well as Tricks. So it just really fit the character straight away. And she threatened if I changed the name to quit the book. So I had to leave it.
I thought that was really fascinating as I was reading when I got to that. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense because I did not get that at first. It kind of cracked me up for a little bit because it just made
Good.
her character even better.
Yeah,
So,
she was very fun as a character. Normally, you have to be careful and make sure everything they do makes sense, works for them. It's in tone. Another character wouldn't say that sentence, or something they say no one else would say if you just gave the sentence without context. Whereas with Wix, she could say or do anything at any time. She's not trying to be a pest. She's just trying to be herself. Itself.
and in the story, you talk about her being involved in the world, and she has basically no filter. How? What is the like? How does that affect her personality and the changes that happen throughout the story as she interacts with both of the other robots that I'm going to leave unnamed?
So, because she's so open compared to the other two, how does that change her relationship with those two?
Yes.
Um, well, seeing she's so driven and forward, she still cares about them because they're all the same cast of robot, even though they have very different levels of privilege and knowledge about what they're supposed to be doing and who made them and stuff like that. With the first robot, she doesn't bully it around, but she definitely knows if we're doing something that's better than doing nothing. So she'll say, "We're doing this," and the first robot won't fight. There will be times when it kicks back, but normally it's kind of just, yeah, this sounds safe for now, and I need a bit of safe at the moment. With Wilt, the white robot, it's very different because she's sort of looking up to him and trying to get one up on him, and he's always like, "Well, I do have all the information in the world in my head, and you're never going to surprise me. So straight away, there's a challenge, and I'm better than you. Have at it. Really, really try to get me, but you're not going to." So there is a bit of that surprise. Like, there's the scene where she pops up and she's like, "Good morning," and goes to shake his hand, and she's taken her hand off, and he goes, "Ah, funny, a joke," and that's it. He's not surprised or anything. Um, yeah. Plus, there's just more things in the future which even I can't mention, and it's dodging around what to say to not. Yeah. Anyway,
Yes.
let's just.
So I have to ask and bring it up her
Mhm.
interaction with Robot One. They interact a lot, and her caring side comes out. Do you feel like they develop more of like a friendship relationship than what she develops with Wilt?
Yeah, definitely. With Will, it's like sibling rivalry. It's very combative. They're
Mhm.
both, "I'm here, you're here, that's it." With Robot Hero 1, at first she doesn't realize what she's done in the first book until she rereads its journal, and then she can see the damage she's done, especially without meaning to, especially how she reacted afterwards. She feels very, not sad to have done it. She's never sorry for what she's done, but she's very sorry that the follow-on results led to the events of the first book and how it went, and just what a complete schmozzle it was for the first robot. So it's not like she's doing this to make things better, but to stop being that less considerate, straightforward, bullet of a character. Yeah.
Does she develop more of like a conscience as the story goes on? Because I know there's a scene with the angels and a happens and they ask her to do something and she something in her head realizes, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong. Like,
Oh,
was that planned in there, or was that something that kind of came up as you were
that
writing
was
her character?
that was always a part of it, because it's about when you are 100% forward and you don't think and don't stop, you will do things that are very, very bad. Uh, and so until you see a reflection of that in someone else, you're not going to be aware of it yourself, and you can't then react. When she sees the red light district angels and she sees what they're doing and how they don't care when they do it, they're very neutral on the topic. They're like, "It's a thing, we're doing it, we don't care." She sees herself becoming one of them, especially when they offer her the power that they do. She sort of stops thinking, "Oh, this could be very bad, especially if I had their power and my gusto to go and do stuff. This is very, I've got to put the brakes on now, so at least I can think, do I want to be this or not?" um, so yeah, she definitely develops a conscience at that point, and I think from there on she sort of picks up a lot. And at the same time, she only thinks she's better. She's not, because then we get the last couple of chapters where, ooh,
In it. And she also in the kind of in the start of the book, she is, I want to say, a little obsessed with her appearance and she goes through and wants specific parts. Where does that stem from in her character personality?
that is before she's met Robot One or the White Robot. So she's very much on her own. The only friend she has is kind of her own reflection. So she's very obsessed with appearance, and she just wants to look good. And she wants to be able to point and say, "That's mine, give me that." So that's literally how she steals the legs off the wall and has them spray painted red. Spoiler, not much of one. Yeah, to start off with, that's her only friend. Then she meets the blue robot and kind of is like, "Oh, cool, I can see you. I can see how we're different but the same thing." And then she meets Wilt and she's like, "Oh, I can see how boring it could have been. Fantastic." Then she gets a better reflection. So the sort of like the thing itself, the reflection, and then the third bit that, observes those two reflections. So she's progressing definitely through time, and as she's met more robots and just has more experiences. But when she's first turned on, it's literally, "You look like this ultra $1 trillion robot. What do you think?" And she's just like, "Well, that could be a bit better. That's not bad. I like this color of red. Oh, yes." And then
And overall, how did you feel writing about her ultimate mission to create this thing?
it was the start of the whole book. It's called A Machine of Blood. And she had a mission, and she's like, "Well, if humans make machines of metal, why can't we make machines of blood?" And that's sort of the first horrible drive that she has. One, I'm alive, I can do anything. Two, I can do whatever I like. I'm going to see if I can do this. And with enough information, and apparently with these robots' infinite capabilities, it really should be possible. So throughout the story, it's sort of hanging in the back of her mind. And then it sort of becomes the forefront and the first thing that she's always been doing in the background, as well as being this general muppet that she is. And so everything sort of comes to a question where she looks at how she's hurt the blue robot and can she stop doing that. She looks at the red light district angels and how bad they are and what they do, and could she actually stop that. And then she's literally given the choice in this moment where they're like, "Cool, you flick that switch, you're never going back. You don't flick that switch, well, you at least had some self-control, especially at a critical point." Yeah, but it started with the image, with that image and that title. And I know a lot of people write the whole story and then come up with the title. And I was like, no, I got the title, I know it, and I'm going to write this book and see what comes out. And it's going to be Wix defending herself, and we'll just see what happens.
So with Wix being her crazy, cantankerous personality, would you say she became less chaotic as the story progressed? As she started to rationalize things better, I feel like, or see the different perspective?
She didn't become less chaotic. She simply got a better handle on it. Like when people go through their own changes and they can see, like a lot of people say, "Oh, I felt like a doormat when I was younger, but now I'm more assertive. I can stop." Same thing. She's got a plug on it. If they ever need it, she absolutely will pull it out and go ham. Like in the final scene when when there's a bit of a combat, she has no trouble stepping straight into that and just going like, "Oh, I've wanted to beat people up for a while, and you guys are very bad." Same sort of a thing. So it's like it's an ability she can use as opposed to a constant mode she can't control.
So speaking of abilities, what other abilities does she have?
Let's see. I'm gonna have to make it up for the third book. She's gonna get some wings. She can fly. She transforms into a demon with black flames. I don't know. You can put your own ad up now.
I mean, I know she has super strength, right? That's one of the abilities. She's also like a genius because she downloads all those different courses, especially focused on like the
Human anatomy. Yep.
and everything. So that's which I kind of wish I could do that. It would be really awesome, just to download any course information you want. I also had this persuasive ability. Like she could persuade the other robot to do
She
whatever.
is very persuasive. One of the beta readers said, "I like Wix. She's a very interesting character. I would not be her friend." And I'm like, that's exactly what she's going for. "Hi, you've met me. Things will happen now. If you're in the way, I'll try to be sorry."
Yes, that is definitely Wix for you, because she's one of those friends that you're like, oh, this person's super cool. Oh my gosh, why am I interacting with this person? She's gonna get me thrown in jail.
"Why are we in a taxi to get married? What? No." If you want to know about more abilities, I'm uncertain at this point. Book 3 is about Wilt, so it's from his point of view. He's a very different kettle of fish entirely. The others two are obviously going to be in it. Especially, I will tell you for free, it picks up exactly where book 2 ends. Like
Oh, that's
literally
good.
1 second later.
That is
It's
good.
yeah, it's going to be good. and exciting. And I hope it wraps things up nicely, but also allows it to keep going if
Mhm.
people keep buying it. Hell, you keep writing. Um, yeah, I don't know. She probably disguise. That would be an obvious one at that point,
Mhm.
because if you walk around and you're this famous set of red, blue, and white robots who are just known all over the world, you still need the ability to blend in. Like there's one scene in book 2 when she's got a coat and a hat on,
Mhm.
and that's enough to fool other robots who are looking for her. But like a human sees a robot face and they're just like, well, it's a bright red robot. It's that evil one, isn't it? No, she's not evil. She's just fourth.
The world that they live in, they're used to robots. Like, let's talk about like where their
Yes.
world is at in retrospect of everything, like compared to ours.
It is Earth. It is a great distant future. And this is probably a state where being billionaires is the normal thing. Um, there's just lots, inflation's gone through the roof, but it allows for these people who have one step above whatever trillionaire is, so a quadrillionaire, um, money, facilities, whatever they want. So you've got the people who have nothing, like the scene with Tilda, and you've got other people whoever's in charge of having made these robots and built them and commissioned them. We don't know who it is yet. They're very
Mhm.
mysterious. They've got this whole lab. They've got these 3 robots. There's some weird experiment going on, and no one knows anything apart from the white robot, who he's conveniently part 3, so answers are coming. Um, but the world does have robots in everyday life, and they're just robots. If they malfunction, no one worries about chucking them in the compactor, getting a new one, getting a receipt or something. Whereas our robots seem to have privileges. They don't get stopped in public when they do things like steal cars or jump from train to train. They there's just many situations which our first robot never questioned, and then
Mhm.
our second robot, Wix, she knows exactly what's going on, but they just don't stop them, and so she's like, I'll use that to my advantage, I'll get things done. um, so that's like they're at the very tip of the robot iceberg. These
Okay.
would definitely be the top 5 robots in existence right now.
Mhm.
Then down the bottom you've got the ones who serve you at Woolies, who are like, hello madam, would you like your oranges wrapped up? And then it drops it, and that's it. It's in the roaster. Um,
Huh.
and varying levels in between that. So it's kind of it's definitely about opulence in that sort of aspect as well. When one person has these 3 ultra robots and everyone else just has a normal everyday experience, like you walk
Hmm.
down the street, there's robots. Um, a lot of people don't like robots. Some people like them, but it's just tense. So kind of dystopian as well, but we haven't seen a great deal of the world because the first robot very blind. The second robot, Wix, sort of revisits a lot of places he goes to explore what
Mhm.
happens, and so that leaves it for Wilt to actually get out there and sort of leave the laboratory that they're all built in. And who knows?
Hmm. Is there something in the backstory that may have created the rift between why some of the humans dislike the robots and some of them do, like they're okay with it?
We see in the first book the old man. He's very upset when the blue and black robot is working at the news agency, and he says directly, like, "Oh, my wife's dead because of you. I lost the job, and then we couldn't pay for her meds, and that was it." So that's why they hated robots. It came in and took human jobs. Uh, at the same time, the world is very overpopulated with humans, and there's robots to do all the manual stuff that we can't do. Like, if you're out in the threshing fields, that's dangerous work because the threshers are giant mega machines that cut things up. If a robot gets caught up, that's okay. If it's a human, you don't want that sort of a thing. So it sort of was necessary to feed the growing population, and at the same time, the population it happened to weren't consulted, and it just sort of happened. So you've got the people who don't like the robots. Then
Mhm.
you've got the people who were born today who are like, yeah, robots are natural. Like they woke up and probably had a robot nurse in the playroom.
That's
Um,
actually pretty cool, and it's almost kind of realistic too.
Yeah. Well, the other day we went to a bar for food, and this little robot came around. This is in real life, not my story. It came around, and its name was Poppy, and it had 3 different shelves in it. So when you were done with your food, you could stick your tray in the robot, and it would take it off to wherever it got compacted in a trash can.
That is cool. I don't
Yeah.
even know if America has that. PS guys, he's in Australia, so
Turn this
like
upside down.
yeah.
Good day, mate. Having a wonderful day.
That is really cool though that they're
Mm.
I was thinking like just the automatic coffee pot, you can schedule
That's a
time for
robot. Sure,
coffee.
sure.
I guess that's the priorities of my life these days.
Coffee
Making sure
is
the
coffee is my best
coffee.
friend.
Yes.
Actually, I'm surprised none of my characters in this drink coffee or tea, because every other character, I make them have a cup of tea or coffee at some point, and
Yeah.
none of the robots have had any.
Well, it would just go straight through, right? Isn't that what happened in? Because you've got a bar scene in Wix's story, so
Yes,
and it didn't really the alcohol and stuff didn't affect her, right? If I remember right.
I don't think the alcohol affected her, but she could have like absorbed it for whatever chemical nutrients were in it and turned
Hmm.
that into something to power her. But compared to their internal battery engine, it's like 0.001% effective. But for the appearance of being normal and social, they can consume food and it just goes through the system and nothing happens. They don't digest it and really eat it. But it doesn't suddenly slop out their sides or something like that. They're well-built robots. Yes.
We have to empty the cartridges later. Which let's talk about
Yeah.
weeks in the dating stuff because, like,
Ooh, it's Jivan.
that was kind of a fun scene. Like,
Yeah.
it was definitely had some interesting perks. And how, like, where did you get the idea with that? And there's also part of something in there that I'm not going to talk about, but it's really cool that how you kind of came up with that, and she discovered she's almost like she's more than just a robot. Like,
Um, it was. I can tell you now, that bit surprised me as much as it surprised you reading it. Um, First off, when I worked at the news agency, yes, I stole that for the first book. I would have ideas all day long, and one of it was, the conversation people have when they're on dates, and they're like, "It's me, it's not you." I thought, what's the worst way to have that line? And then I've had that line for 20 years or 10 years, and Wix was the perfect character for it. So she's sitting at a date with someone, and she says, "It's not me. No, it's it's me. It's not you. I don't like people like you."
it's
That
true.
was the version of the line. So from that line and her stuck together, I'm just like, cool. How can we use that? And so she's out, and part of it is social training. So you go on a date with the person, see whatever. And because they're this super secret laboratory, no one questions that there's a red robot wearing a red dress having a date with a laboratory guy, and she orders the entire menu or something like that. Originally, that was all the scene was. Then one of my beta readers was like, "This is good, but you need that scene from the first book in the second book as well." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. In that case, they want some extracurricular activities. We'll see what happens." And so they go there, and I'm like, "This is great." But it's a moment of true vulnerability for any character when
Mhm.
you're with someone in such a capacity. I'm like, "Cool. What's the most in-depth thing that could happen to these robots that they don't know about? Like, literally, how do you look at yourself in the face, and how do you feel?" And I probably took that super literally. And so I wrote the scene, sat back, and went, "I didn't know that, but that's fantastic." And another one of my beta readers, they're not very into romance, so he got to that scene. It was like, "Yeah, okay," and he starts skipping it. Got to one bit, and he was like, "What? What?" And he went back and read the whole thing, and went, "Wow, that's really mean of you to sneak something so critical into a scene I'm going to skip." I'm like, "Hey, hey, if you're just going to skip any of my book, like, read the book, jeez."
Yeah, don't skip scenes. I mean, although I'm guilty of doing the same sometimes myself, but
Hmm.
normally I make sure like I scan enough to where if like there's an important thing in there, I pick it up because in the
Yeah.
steamy scenes, not always are things put in there. And that scene I wouldn't classify it as super steamy. I mean, it was in the steamy range, but like I don't know, it did show her vulnerable side, and I really felt like her character started to kind of like change following that.
Yeah, definitely.
So it was very nice to see that. And then her reaction and the way she interacted with the first robot following that was different as well.
Yeah. Well, I also a lot of people have had PTSD, and that involves intrusive thoughts. And so I use my own experience with such matters to inform how Wix would then react to what happens in that scene.
Mhm.
Um, and so you see that later on where she goes around and she's thinking, am I just a robot? Am I this human meat puppet thing, or am I a monster walking around in plain sight, hidden? And she'll be doing a normal everyday thing, and very suddenly that thought comes out of nowhere. So I do think a lot of people will be able to relate with that when you're out shopping, nothing's happening, and suddenly your brain goes right back there. Like you are there. It's not just a thought. You're like facing it again, and you have to bring back and deal with it. So I thought, no, that's good. That's realistic, and it sort of shows how humanly created these characters still were, despite being robots. Like, just at the actual complete apex of robot construction and stuff, and just the mystery of that whole tangled bag.
Which I felt like that really makes like the whole story unique. You tying in the humanity aspect into these robots because you can see it and it like is more obvious as the story progresses, especially with Wix, because she
Mhm.
really steps into this more sentient feeling being towards the end of the story. And I actually like was questioning what she really was at the end, especially after the final incident.
I do like the progress with the characters. I think that's a good payoff for readers. The promise, it's going to be robots. Front cover, full life of a robot, robots. Progress, you see them making a lot of mistakes and learning along the way. Just different things they say. Like in the first one, the robot doesn't understand that swearing's even swearing. It just makes the sound of the swear words and thinks it's normal everyday stuff. But then we see as it progresses, the way it speaks becomes much more fluid, much more human, much less stunted than in the first two chapters. Wix, on the opposite hand, as you pointed out, she very much becomes more human in her feelings and emotions. So more empathy, more sympathy, rather than just "it's me." She's changed very much more to "I see you," not "it's just me."
And even with the whole section where she gets a job, that was actually really cool too because it showed another side to her.
Yeah, that was. I needed a few different scenes where she was just doing her own thing. And I'm like, well, I've got this little idea for a scene. And I sat down and wrote it. And I wrote it all in one day. And that's 5,500 words.
Actually, I felt it really kind of gave her, like, as a reader, I saw her determination and focus and her drive to be like the best because comes in and basically transforms this whole place to be better. And even if it pisses people off, she still like turned it into something better. And
Yeah.
that was very, very Wix personality like.
Yeah, she did get a chance to sort of go back to the very first version of herself in this situation because it was all new again. She didn't know everyone. And she's like, right, I'm here, I'm me. What will I do? Bang. And she
Yeah,
makes it
but it
better.
wasn't so much out of her selfishness as it was like she wanted to actually see it be good because she knew it could be good with the right people. So, yeah, awesome. So, with Wix, is there any surprises that we haven't covered that you think readers would like to know without spoilers?
Read the next book, I guess.
Read all the books.
Well, I think I've given the title for the next few books. So the third one is Stainless Steel Souls, and that's Wilt. The prequel is much shorter, and it's called The Gestation Period of a Robot, which does look a little at the building of them, we could say. And then the last one is called Wix and Worry. And I haven't revealed the front cover for that, but I can tell you it's Wix, but I can tell you you won't recognize her.
Ooh.
So yeah, there's definitely more things coming, and it's sort of it veers towards the superheroic at that point. And if that's the fifth book and that wraps it all, then it could be very sad. Or if it just opens up more can of worms. Honestly, the more books you write, the more things you could write. So it never winds down. It always winds up unless you rip it off. And I don't want to do that. I like these characters too.
Or you fight with your characters and throw like your stuff at the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just
I've
like,
been there.
all right, I had plans. Forget it. No.
Yep. So go ahead and tell our viewers where they can find you and your work.
Right. If you go to Amazon and you look up J.T. Moriarty under the Kindle books, you want to look for The Full Life of a Robot for the first book, and the second is A Machine of Blood. You can get them both as Kindle downloads, or you can get paper editions. Here's a lovely one of the first book, and here's a lovely one of the second book. I'm also on Facebook. Just look up J.T. Moriarty Writer. I'm pretty sure that's the tag. I'm on Twitter. Same thing. And there's another one. There's so many social things. I forget everything. Just type in JT Moriarty and I should pop up. And then you can follow me and buy everything and buy me a mansion.
Yes.
Yay.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, guys. Jay, thanks so much for hanging out with me and being on the show.
No worries. My pleasure. And it was fun to actually talk about, the greater world outside of the book's own words. Thanks for having me.